Welcome to the Queer Confidence Podcast, the podcast to help you become your most confident queer self. I'm your host, he, she, they, Coach Alex Ray, and I haven't always been this confident. In fact, I used to be super insecure. And through this show, I want to share with you what's worked for me, my clients, and my guests so that you can become more confident. Hello, unicorns! I am delighted to be back with you today with another special guest episode as we continue this really awesome series talking about the gay porn industry and just like a wonderful, beautiful view behind the scenes. And so today I have with me performer and creator Kaden Gray. And he, she, they are just a wonderful, wonderful human that we're going to have like a wild conversation. Get ready for some twists and turns, you all. But we're going to talk about a lot of things, including what it's like to be a performer and creator behind the scenes, how he got into it, and also what it's like living with HIV. And we're going to talk about you equals you. And we might get into some other things, y'all. So just hang in there, get excited. It's going to be a fun conversation. Kayden, thank you so much for being with me today.
Hey, babes. Thank you for having me. I really like how you see me.
Well, also, you have this wonderful, beautiful accent. Tell everyone where you're from, because that's the first thing they're going to notice just hearing our voices.
So, not England. I am Polish. I feel like I pass for British for anyone who doesn't live here and isn't from here, or, right. Some people. But I am proudly Polish, despite everything that's happening there and, being a fucking shitstorm. I'm very proud of being Polish.
Love that. Well, thank you, because my ignorant ass was like, oh, maybe English. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And especially because, when there's any kind of ceremony or anything, they're usually British ceremonies. So let's say you win an award. It is a best British something. So British. And also me living in England and having, like a mixed accent leads to people fantasizing about me as a British child very often. Yeah.
Love that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. That's what a snapback does.
That's what does?
Snapback, like a hat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I'm wearing right now.
They're like, yeah, oh, yeah. That's it. Actually, no. If you were living here,
yeah, depending
on like your demeanor, you could be considered a chap just because of that.
Okay. Isn't it fun? Like both of us, I think, like playing with gender and gender roles and everything. This is like not even the first thing we planned on talking about, but like, let's talk about it.
But yeah, we do. And I think I'm quite new to it. Well, I know I'm new to it. It's kind of been happening on unfolding for me over the last few years. And it's been quite a journey full of lots of different feelings and fears.
Yeah.
So I actually really appreciate talking to someone who does identify as non-binary, particularly someone who's male presenting. Because I think for a lot of people that kind of almost disqualifies you.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing too. I struggle with the label non-binary personally, because to me, when I say that, I hear, and I know this is not how everyone interprets it, but I hear like absence of gender, and I'm more like, I want to crank it all up. I want to be like vibrantly masculine and vibrantly feminine, and like, so I usually, well, I don't know. I actually really have not ever used any label in the non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer. I like haven't really identified yet with any of them strongly. And so it's another funny thing because I am so androgynous in a lot of the ways that I present publicly. Like, I don't know, I'm a ball of confusion over here and I'm okay with it.
And I think that's beautiful. And the listeners won't know this, won't see you at the minute, but you're male presenting, sitting there, but then behind you there's a poster of you. Is that a poster of you? Right.
Yes.
And that's a whole different person, almost, right?
Yeah, me with a unicorn, an eyeshadow, and a crystal crown, and a big ol' freaking fluffy tutu. Like,
That's what I thought it was. Purple tutu, just, for anyone who... Interestingly, I feel like maybe experiencing something that's a little bit of the opposite. I do enjoy the absence of gender, and I feel like the feminine masculine division has just been very hurtful to lots of people, and me included. And I think as I grow, I expect that I will be experimenting a lot more, because I do really easily tune into the masculine, and the feminine has almost, well, it kind of has felt like it's forbidden for me due to, the world being genderphobic and exceptionally homophobic, and where I came from, especially that being amplified by that. So, I think maybe I will, I'm sure it will evolve.
Absolutely. Mine has evolved a ton, and I have been very, very afraid of my feminine energy and very, shamed that half of me. And felt like that part was, weaker or not as good. And oh my God, now I'm at the point where I'm like, no, when I need to be extra powerful, that's when I tap into my feminine.
It's the femme.
Yeah.
I see. I hear that.
Yeah, when I'm more relaxed, and when I'm not public facing, I'm much more in my masculine. It's very interesting, which is why I'm here with a snapback with you, because we're just relaxing. We're
an off day.
Yeah.
Rest day.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. I would love to also, while we're kind of surfing this topic of labels, tell us a little bit more about why you choose the label performer and creator versus something like porn star or model.
Thanks for asking that. The reason is pretty simple, and that is my experiences in commercial porn, although many of them have been positive, and I think that's really important to say. And because how hot conservatives are at punishing porn and vilifying sex workers in general for being deviant and, targeting children, all of these kind of outlandish claims, mixing us with trafficking and all of that. Some of the experiences and a lot of the structure that I experienced in porn does almost implies that a performer is an object. And this is very rarely said, if ever, but I think there's an implication, and I think the audience also picks up on that. And so the terms like porn star I tolerate, but model I really don't like, because to me it sounds devoid of agency, which is something that I have fought really hard to acquire and keep, and make sure that people know that I have that. I think it's very important, because otherwise, like in many aspects of life, people can walk all over you if you let them. And I do feel like in some of my porn experiences, I did agree to things that I did not really want to do, and I was coerced into doing them. And so, all of this traumatized me, and led me onto a path where I just I'm really looking for interactions, and I want to present in a way that that's strong, powerful, empowering for me and for other sex workers. Yeah. So, the creative part, especially because I do have people look at my stuff and they're like, oh, you do OnlyFans stuff. That label is do OnlyFans. I mean, maybe some people do OnlyFans. I certainly have OnlyFans, but I came from commercial porn, where I learned a lot, and I produce it, I arrange it, I market everything, I edit it. And so I take a part in all the aspects of creation of my work. And that is a very wide skill set, rather than just, getting a dick out.
Right.
We'll see. Whatever you got.
But oh my God. Yeah. I really, really hear it. Thank you for sharing that explanation.
Thanks for
Um,
listening.
And yeah, absolutely. Like speaking of masculine and feminine, right? A performer is very like feminine energy, right? It's allowing the energy flowing towards you. It's very receptive. Here I am, like you can admire me. Creator's very masculine energy. It's outward. It's like I'm taking this action to create
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful performance. It's wonderful. I love these labels. They're so much. I do feel like with model, it is very much what you said of like you're an object, and I've
I
experienced that go-go dancing too. Like
okay.
being very. I do not want to be objectified in a way that I lose my humanity.
And that's so important. And I don't think a lot of people made the distinction. They almost I've noticed a lot of people feel like the moment you step into that realm, you're already like staked out and, kind of ready for anything and accepting of anything, and you've lost consent, the right to consent. And I think that's just completely insane. And I found what you said interesting, the distinction between performer being feminine and a creator masculine, because I think that's how the world wants to see it as well. But there are so many incredibly powerful performers who are female or female presenting, and they're incredible entrepreneurs, and they may not even take part in the creative part. But nonetheless, I think that maybe the performer may be seen as more passive, instrumental, right?
Yeah.
Where the creator is the person who wears the pants,
right?
So to speak.
Right. Yeah, and it doesn't even have to do with your gender identity or even your chromosomes, right? It's really
yeah. I guess it really doesn't, does it?
Oh, it's more of a spiritual thing, kind of. It's a little abstract. I don't know. Cool observation.
And on your part too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're just complimenting each other here. That's what this is.
Mutual jerk off.
Right. We're just gonna flirt over here. You all get to just sit in and listen. You're welcome.
Guys. Yeah.
They do. They love it so much. Okay. What is one of your favorite parts about being a performer?
Ooh. This is a difficult one. I've always struggled picking just one thing
tell us things that you love about it.
Okay, yes. A list. Love that. So I think the first, well, maybe not the first, but one of the things that I really love about it is that I have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've been really lucky with what the offers that came my way initially, and that's helped me build a big platform. And I can utilize it to do lots of stuff that is unrelated to porn directly. That's my favorite part. The fact that it is inherently sexual, and I found that to be super liberating. I think that drive drove me to porn, like kind of shedding of shame of body and identity, a queer identity particularly. And that's it. I'm kidding. No, there's lots of things that I love. I love the fact that I get to connect with so many people online, and particularly these days, I get to really choose my work. In this era of independent creation, I get to choose what I do, when I do it, who with, and what it looks like. Do I leave something in an edit that would be normally taken out of studio porn to make it, kind of perfect, quote unquote. I think there's a lot that I love about it.
Okay, wait, do you want to intentionally leave it vague? Like, I'm kind of curious. What do you mean? What are the things that you would leave in?
But there was something there's lots of things, like for example, some laughter or conversations or like questions of consent, which are not very like they're really natural sometimes happening in the midst of it. Like, do you like that? Or not just playing for the camera, but actually interacting and communicating with each other in a way that's not for the camera, but that's like an interpersonal, beautiful moment that a lot of the time, well, almost always is gone. Commercial porn very often portrays this kind of like, I don't know, fantasy interaction.
Yes.
Right, in many different forms, like from the likes of men.com, when it's like so fucking lit, there's no features whatsoever on the skin, to Treasure Island Media, where it's like gritty and kind of like plays on these really dark parts of our reality and queer sex and so on. Example, something that I think a lot of people may squirm over, but squirm?
That's okay. Yeah, let's make them squirm.
I was just wondering if the word squirm is because I'm a filthy foreigner, but I sometimes experience in porn things like blood or shit, right?
Yeah.
Just to put it simply, as have you, as has everyone who's ever done anal. Some people can't handle it. I've been doing it for so long that I mean, it's very, like, it's just a normal part of it.
Yeah.
I don't welcome it. I personally don't like it. Some people might like it. I know some people do like it, and I respect that.
Yeah.
For me, not something I invite, but I've had to find my peace with it. And so sometimes, for example, there was the scene where there was a little bit of poo, and the camera couldn't see it, but the boy said, "I'm sorry." And my immediate response after like lots of soul searching previously was never apologize for that. And I kept it just because of that, because I feel like we have so much shame around our physiology, anything that's not, like that doesn't work to create this perfect porn scenario that many of us are trying to replicate in our lives because we see it in porn.
Right.
Lost my train of thought there, but I think you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
it's very often it's cut out, and I wanted to keep that in, and I get to do that now.
I love that. You do. This is like a really awesome example too of the agency that you've created for yourself, and
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. I like that one.
Yes. Also, like, that is normal when doing anal. Like that. What the hell else do we think? Like, how do we even? Like, that is what a butt does.
Yeah. And it smells. Okay, it smells. Yeah, I don't like it. Sometimes I will lose my boner because of it. And, I mean, think about how many times someone needs to redouche.
Right.
Like, in life, how many times you've seen someone be like, okay, that we need to, like, clean again.
Yeah.
And there is a limit as to what I'm going to put in the scene. Of course, I'm not going to, like, take a picture of the sheets.
Right.
Should there be an accident. But I think there are some really healthy examples of how you can behave, how you can adjust your behavior in a way that is healthy for you and for people you interact with.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's nothing worse than blaming someone for having poo in their mouth. I'm pretty sure that they tried to douche the best way they could.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very true.
That's the most. I mean, that's all I need. Really.
Amazing. What else do you really enjoy about the way that you get to create porn content now?
So I think the most significant part of it was that I have managed to make decisions about one particular decision about when to start fucking bareback, and that was something I didn't do for 8 years, and that I was praised for, criticized for. I lost work over because companies started going bareback and people just didn't want to like the moment I mentioned the condom, or they just didn't want to even like talk to me. And I got to decide when that was going to be and what that was going to look like. And for me, it was important that it is a thought out, wholesome next step. And so I got to create something that included that, but also provided damage control. Because, like, whether we like it or not, and this is not to vilify anyone who does condomless sex and doesn't do this, doesn't, include sexual messaging. But if you look at the global healthcare and access to resources, the ones that we have and take for granted, really, and absolutely deserve, but there's an inequality. When you look at that, when you really look into it, you realize that a lot of the people that sign up for our to watch our content, they have no access to things like PrEP. So in some countries, there's no access to ART, which is the medication that will keep you alive and well when you're HIV positive. Testing is bad. All of these things that we have, people don't necessarily have. So I wanted to create something that celebrates you equals you. And so that, the fact that I can have condomless sex and connect without fear of transmission, but also relates to people who don't necessarily have access to it and educates. So that has been the most precious thing for me. I got to do that on my terms, and I got to make decisions about what that was going to look like and how much of that I was going to put in the content.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I really wanted to be able to interview you for this series was because I saw your messaging online about you equals you. And so is there what would you like to share with our listeners about it today? Instead of asking like super targeted questions, I'd love to just hear your thoughts.
Oh, I have lots of thoughts. You equals you. You equals you, just for anyone who's listening and is not aware, you equals you means undetectable equals untransmittable. And is also my first bareback film was a play on that. I named it You Equals Fucking You. Just kind of like a frustrated way of saying, well, if you are on meds, you can't transmit it. I could be loading you for the rest of your life. You're not going to get HIV from me, right? That was the message of it. And I just really think that the reason why I had to do that film is because the message of it, since You Equals You first came out about 13 years ago. So first, since we realized that you can take a pill, not pass it on to other people, HIV, right? Since then, the engagement and acceptance of that and knowledge around it has been very poor, and it's been mainly pushed by queer people, the people who are most affected, Yeah. So also people of color. So the communities that are most disadvantaged in this case and already have a lot on their plate, we've had to mobilize. Charities have had to push this message, and they've done a really amazing job. But it still falls really short because not everyone gets to experience that messaging, right? Or get to it, doesn't have access to it, doesn't know where to find it. And so things like education, like primary education, secondary education, like main education, healthcare, all of those sources are not very well equipped to pass on this message. A lot of them just don't do that at all, and it just makes me feel really angry because on top of living with HIV, it turns out that when you do, you're having to manage general ignorance around it, and over and over and over and over again invest your time and energy into educating people, and that's really tiring. And so I think You Equals You is the best gift that we've had, but as far as HIV goes, it's the mother of PrEP as well, because PrEP is essentially just, part of the medication that HIV positive people take. And it's kind of like HIV contraception. So we have all these incredible tools. I think they're just very underrated, and there isn't enough awareness around them. And I just really wish that there was, because I seriously burned out trying to say it in many different ways.
I can only imagine the exhaustion from constantly having to be like arguing with people and educating people and informing people.
Absolutely. And there are some situations where that is more bearable. Like, sure, I can have an argument with a stranger on a night out, no problem. But let's say you hook up with someone, and like myself, you do have undetectable on your Grindr, but they didn't read it, and they didn't ask you any
which
question.
Is also my favorite. Like,
right?
You're gonna go have sex with someone, and you're not even gonna read their like tiny ass little bio on Grindr. Like, really?
Yeah. You've seen the picture of the dick, and that's good enough for you,
right? But then you're gonna be concerned about HIV when you get there. Like, really?
But that's it, and then you sit on that dick, and then you ask the guy or the person, then you ask them, are you clean? And I really just, it breaks my heart when people do that. And I think that's also why I've been pushing the messaging. I want people to know this about me just up front, so that I don't have to have situations where I'm having to manage someone's panic attack, even though I'm not risk to them. I'm no risk to them, but their ignorance, through no fault of their own, really, and it's not allowing them to receive that information, that I'm no risk, that they're safe. Girl.
Indeed. I really like, also, you just said something that I want to pull out, because I think everyone could kind of sort of miss it, but you just pointing out that, like, through no fault of their own, right? Everyone has not just formed these ideas in a vacuum. It's not like they like came out of the womb thinking these things, right? Like, absolutely. This is education that wasn't the full picture that people have gotten around HIV, and they've heard the scary information, and none of the more positive, or like, I don't know, it's more like, oh, just be afraid of this thing.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, what is it? It's just bad. Just stay away. Yeah.
Girls have sex with boys after marriage, and sex is bad, and if you don't wear a condom, you're a cunt. Right? That. And the scary part is that it's not even like it's obviously incomplete in many ways, but it also offers something that is the opposite of the truth. Yes. And so it fills this empty cup that a young person has, full of trauma and fear and anxiety around something that is, or can be, really incredible and fulfilling, right? And that's the difficulty, because they say you can't fill a cup that's already full. So to like the human mind is beautifully adapted to preventing to keeping us surviving. And one of those things is, whatever you've learned, stick to that, because it's necessary. And when you're told lies about who you are, and I think that this applies to many things, queerness, gender, HIV, when you're told lies, then it's really hard to unlearn those things. And I feel like this is what you're trying to help people do. So yeah. Thanks for that.
You're so welcome.
Oh my God, I feel blessed. But I really
appreciate
blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I
Um,
mean,
Same. I like this mutual appreciation of what each
oh my
other are
God,
doing
absolutely.
for the community and for the world. It's so wonderful.
I feel fully rubbed off right now. Like,
You all are just you heard it here first. um I would love to hear a little more too about like your thoughts on like going back to kind of humanizing creators, performers, anyone that works in the porn industry or like dancing. I know that for all of us, wherever we are within the sort of wide spectrum of the sex or erotic industry,
well put.
um, thank you that I came up with that on the spot. um,
Intuitive.
the dehumanizing of people, of performers. I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on this? I think it would just be neat for us to just have a little conversation on what we think about what maybe the public can do differently for performers that can help, and what performers can also do for themselves in order to empower themselves.
Mm. So I think first of all, what the public can do. Um, this is a difficult one because there's a lot that the public can do, but they need to be kind of told how to do it. One of the most important thing I think that needs to happen around the world is decriminalization of sex work. It's not going to change all the attitudes, but I think that's a really like the legislative part of handling it has been the source of new generations just acquiring and perpetuating this distrust and shame around our professions.
Mm-hmm.
I think the public could be more fucking kind because they've been rubbing off to our content for free mostly. Honestly, like the whole paradigm of this is that porn is free and is public property, and we are kind of public domain, and that ain't so, darling. And inside this may come as a
True.
surprise, right? This may come as a surprise, but inside and inside every whore there is an actual human soul, with living,
I feel so
breathing,
seen.
striving for things, wanting the same things that every civilian, as we call them,
Yes.
wants, right? So I think just being kinder and more appreciative of what we're doing. But I think that's difficult because if you have internalized shame around sex, then it's really hard to interact with anything that relates to it, anything that's in that realm, with decency and respect. So if you don't respect the sexual act, if you wank in the dark to porn you think you shouldn't be watching, like some hardcore stuff or whatever, and you have all kinds of shame about the kinks you've got, yeah, I think you're going to really struggle to be kind to sex workers because they represent something that you're deeply ashamed of in yourself. And so I think this leads me to a final point. We should all go to therapy. Collectively and individually. I think just healing our shame around sex and what it represents to us. I think that's what we can do for ourselves, and I think would also help sex work. And as for performers, I think just really work towards just get educated and aware. Look out there because there are so many of us. Some people have done some incredible work, and there are TED Talks, there are books, there are community spaces, all kinds of stuff. There are seminars, like literally, if whatever you are into, however you can access this information, there is something there for you, where you can interact with other sex workers, find out what you can do to have more agency and more power. Well, an example of that is joining a trade union, which may not be available in every country, but for example, in the UK, where sex work is partially decriminalized, sex workers can join unions, and the unions help us fight for our rights. And it may seem so. I mean, it's political. It is, and it can be quite overwhelming. Like for me, I don't really relate to the political side of it that well, because it kind of goes over my head a little bit. But it has been something that is really very important. And I've recently had some success rectifying copyright infringements on a few platforms. Excellent. Because I'm part of a union and the legal team has helped me do that.
Awesome.
And that was a massive success. I actually got an email of confirmation, partial confirmation today that things were tackled.
Congratulations.
And without the union, I wouldn't know. Thank you. I wouldn't know how to do that. And there's realizing you're not alone. There's lots of us. There's millions of us, and there's nothing wrong with us. I think that's what every performer needs to do for themselves.
I love that message.
This went on for a bit, didn't it?
Oh, this was great. It's my favorite segment yet. I mean, Western society has really pushed this idea of hyper individualism. And it's a very isolating message when you get into issues like when it's like you said, when it's like maybe a legal thing that's over your head, when it's anything, any scenario where it's beyond your current scope of understanding. Our pressure in society to be individual really creates this fear and shame around asking for help. And the truth is that humans are not meant to be hyper individual, and we're not meant to be hyper codependent. We're really meant to be interdependent, which is like having
beautifully put.
Yeah, thank you. It's having that autonomy yourself, and also knowing that we have resources, other humans who are on our side that are with us, that we aren't alone, as you said.
I absolutely agree, and I think this actually I think it stems from another issue that it stems for like this and other things that we spoke about. For example, the binary approach to gender and sexuality and all of these. It stems from this comparative attitude to reality that humans have. It's either one or it is the other, right? It's either good or bad or dark or light, right? And you can either be alone or with other people. And it's taking me into my late 30s to realize that actually we can both be an introvert and an extrovert. And that there are inclinations of those in all of us. It's a spectrum again.
Oops. It's almost like life isn't a binary and it's actually lived between the extremes.
What?
Oh my god. Oh, no. Who knew? Not us.
Like
we have a what?
We have a thesis.
We do. Let's our next project.
This is it. Yeah.
Podcast thesis. Why not? Oh my goodness. Okay, so one more question that I wanted to pop back on therapy. I feel like people need just a kick in the ass like about therapy, because a lot of people are like, well, why can't I just talk to my friends about it? I don't get it.
Because they can't help you, babe. They're not impartial, and also it's not their job to do that for you. That's why.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And therapy has been one of the best gifts that I've given myself in my adult life, and I've had a few bouts of it. And recently I signed up for this like monthly subscription thing called BetterHelp. Mm-hmm. This is, by the way, not a sponsored message by any means. And I did initially, you can choose your therapist. You can tell them who you want. And it's like £240 a month, which I think is really accessible. And I had a session every week, and I had a lot of things to go into therapy for, because I really felt like I needed to talk about my gender identity. I needed to talk about, the anger issues and past trauma that caused that. Talk about grief after losing a friend this year. So lots of things that I needed to talk about. And I came across someone who I didn't think was going to work for me, because he didn't tell me, and he didn't really give me solutions. Didn't really talk much. He let me speak most of the time. But in the end, it turned out that was just what I needed. Yeah. And the thing is, it was his job to do that. He was paid to do that, and he was trained to do that in a way that is, wise, informed. So I think that's why we really need that. But on top of it, I would say also just tuning into self-care practices is something that's probably been the most important, the most kind of significant thing I've been doing recently. Yeah. And it has been transforming my life. Things like meditation, affirmations, what else? Getting outside.
Yeah.
Right. Interacting with animals.
Another thing I want to add to it too is just that kind of relates to all the topics we've talked about today, is when there's an actual exchange of like money or some kind of energetic exchange versus just getting something for free, we tend to actually get a whole lot more out of it, right? Like, okay, well, when you just go and just watch only free porn, then it does really become this act of like, okay, well, of course, people watching just only free porn are like, well, yeah, you're like a freebie. You're like a giveaway. You really are not a human anymore to me, right? When they are doing the same thing with mental health advice, where, oh, well, I just listen to podcasts and TikTok for my like therapy. I follow a therapist on TikTok, so I'm getting therapy, right? Like, no, that is.
I emerge from that.
It's like there's no purposeful, intentional, meaningful exchange there. And so I often encourage people, I'm like, yeah, thanks for following me on Instagram or listening to podcasts or whatever. Like, this is to get you jump started. But like, if you really want to do this work, come work with me. If you really want to have a meaningful, shame healing, sexual practice where a professional is helping you, go pay for some porn from a thoughtful creator like yourself on, like on your OnlyFans, or right. Or we talked with Davey Wavy a couple weeks ago on Himeros. Like, when there's a purposeful, intentional exchange, I think we all get so much more out of it than when it's like, oh, let me just take all the freebie giveaways. We tend to kind of dehumanize each other and also miss out on the wonderful, like, deeper shame healing work like you talked about in therapy, and like people can do with their bodies.
I hear that, yes. And because when you do that, you don't invest anything, do you? Like, it's kind of like having dessert, which is not very nutritious, and even if it was, you kind of just get sick of it. You don't appreciate the nutrients that are in it, or that the benefit that you could harness.
Yes, you got to eat the broccoli first.
You do.
Anyway,
and those nuts.
And then gobble it all up.
That's a good for you.
Oh my. Well, before we close, is there anything else anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
One thing is that I have been quite nervous talking today
Hmm.
And I think it's important to share because we very often get perceived, we sex workers, we people on social media. I think people get perceived as either victims or in control. And I'm quite glad that I did this, and I was nervous before I did it, and I've been nervous throughout it, but I did it anyway. And this kind of like, I think it's important because there's this narrative, we watch other people's highlight reels all the time, and we think that our reality is shit. But even in the highlight reel, a lot of the not that this is necessarily a highlight reel for me. That's not for me to decide. But I think a lot of people think that there's no anxiety or mental health or emotion going into it. And there's so much that, this whole interaction has been very rich, but also, as well as it has, been, I've been anxious. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
I really wanted to share that.
I
just to normalize that.
Yeah. Destigmatize just being a whole human.
Right.
A whole human with a hole. That's what. But yeah, really though, on a serious note, we all get nervous, we all get anxious, we all feel insecure, we all feel all the negative emotions that so many of us are really trying to avoid, and that unfortunately a large portion of the life coaching community has preached is like a problem that can be fixed, and it can't. You will not ever not feel these negative emotions until you're dead. So right. They aren't a problem.
No, they're not. But how we relate to them is a whole different story, right? And there's a lot of resilience that you can actually cultivate day to day. Little things you can do for those things not to beat you down.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. But nothing's wrong with you for experiencing them.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Oh, what a great note to end on. Real quick, can you remind we're going to put it in the show notes, y'all, so you can click it, find it, whatever, right? But where can everyone find and interact with you?
So you can Google me because I'm famous, but you may not find exactly what you're looking for. So on Twitter and Instagram, well, actually on Twitter, I'm Kaden Gray, XXX, Gray, always with an A. Instagram, official Kaden Gray, until they remove it again. And on both of those, there's my Linktree, which is basically Linktree/Kaden Gray. And there's, I think that's my most important link because everything is linked to it. My YouTube channel, which offers a lot of things about sexual mental well-being. My pages, like Just for Fans, OnlyFans. Particularly recommend Just for Fans because OnlyFans is quite, I think they're quite conservative. I don't think they like us very much. So not all videos can go on it. It's interesting, isn't it? But there's lots of resources on my Linktree. So you just go and see. Both of my recent projects are on it as well. You equals fucking you in porn and non-porn version, and Kayden Unwrapped.
Amazing.
So you go fucking watch that.
Yes.
Yeah, do it now.
Right now, just click it. Oh my god. Wonderful. Okay, y'all, you gotta go follow Kayden, go check out his stuff, and you've got a lot of resources available for everything we talked about today. So, for any listeners that are curious about learning more about HIV, U equals U, or anything else, like Kayden has some really awesome resources in his Linktree. I've already seen it. So it's really I did a little research on you first. I was like, what is this guy like preaching? What's his thing? So I really appreciated when I saw your Linktree had so many neat resources. So yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for being here today.
What a pleasure. Thanks very much. I enjoyed it.
You are welcome, and what a pleasure for me as well. Look at that mutual pleasure. It was a
we did
mutual orgasm.
We did it. I did actually just now.
Oh, excellent. Me too. I wasn't going to tell anyone, but
but that's great. It's beautiful. I also can see like a splat on the screen. That was not lost on me.
Oh my God, I love it. All right. Y'all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Mwah.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend so they too can become more confident. You can also help more people find the show by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen. And if you want to become a more confident queer with support from yours truly, head to CoachAlexRay.com or use the link down in the show notes. I'm looking forward to working with you.